They're speaking to me about something that I'm thinking on. They're speaking to me about something that I'm considering. And today, the big thing that I'm considering today is the passing of former President Carter. That's really big for me. I mean, like, we could sit here and we could go on and on and on about all that man did. We could talk about his work for Habitat for Humanity. We could talk about his work as a politician. We could talk about his work as a naval officer. We could talk about how he helped, prevent a huge, incredible just a tragic disaster here in Canada back in the 50s. We could get into all that. We could talk about him being a Sunday school teacher. We could talk about him being a giver and being charitable and you know what? My experience with people like him, and I've buried many people who are like him. Certainly not as well known as him, but many people that are like him. None of them would feel comfortable if all we did was talk about their virtues. If all we did was talk about how they did this and how they did that, none of them would be comfortable with that. As a matter of fact, I would argue that people like Jimmy Carter and Jimmy Carter himself, the saints who we remember, the saints that we remember and that we think on, and we consider those people who we reflect on, and we reflect on their lives. Every single one of those people would say something along the lines of, if all we did was praise them for all the good work that they have done over the course of their life, they would see their lives as failures. If all their lives led to was us praising them, they would see their lives as failures. And my guess, again, I've buried many people like Jimmy Carter. My guess is he would feel this way. Don't lament me. Don't eulogize me. Don't tell the world about how awesome I am. He did it because of his faith. He did it because he believes in the power of the gospel. He believes in building a kingdom-like world in this world. He believed in serving his neighbors. He believed in serving those around him, taking care of people, taking care of the people who were the most vulnerable. He believed in living a life of gentleness and kindness and perseverance, and above all things, love. He believed that because he desperately wanted to walk beside his Lord. He wanted to follow in Jesus' footsteps. If all we sat here and said was, oh, what a great man, even if all we did was sit here and say, what a great Christian, I think he would see his life as a failure, like the saints would see their lives as failures, because these people live this way, not for adulation, not for praise, not to be recognized. They live this way in the hope that you and I would be willing to follow them. They live the way they live. They live the way they lived with the hope and an always open invitation for us to join them. I mean, we can learn a lot, right? We can learn a lot about how to live by reflecting on Jimmy Carter's life, without question. And I would argue we should. We should. But that's not even half the gift that his life offers you. We can learn a lot about how to live by looking back at the saints like St. Catherine or St. Margaret of Scotland or Francis or Ignatius or any of them. We can look at their lives and we can say, okay, this is how I should live. But that's not even half the gift that their lives can provide to us. The greatest gift that their lives offer us, if we're willing, is that we would choose to live that way. Right? If we would choose to live that way. I mean, that's what the saints are all about. The saints aren't there for us to pray to. The saints aren't there for us to simply praise. The saints are there for us base our lives on. Like we want to strive to be like them. A friend on Blue Sky sent me an article. I think it was written in the Daily Beast. I think it was the Daily Beast. And the article was entitled something along the lines of Jimmy Carter's life should make right-wing Christians or the Christian right ashamed. And I read the article and I get what I get what the author's trying to say. But they say it, yes, I understand, right? The right would look at Carter and say, well, yes, but he was willing to be an ally to the LGBTQ, and he was this and he was that, and therefore, well, or maybe it's a matter that they don't live the way he lived. But the truth is, as I read about Jimmy's life, as I reflect on Jimmy's life, it's not that I feel ashamed, but I see how much further there is for me to go, how much more opportunity there is for me to grow. I see so many possibilities that I can look at his life and apply them to mine and say, I want to try this and I want to try that, and I want to let go of this and I want to let go of that, and I want to embrace this and I want to embrace that. Like, that's what his life says. It's not necessarily that he's making me ashamed, but he certainly wants reading about him. Reading about him is the same as I feel when I read about some of the saints. Their lives call me forward. I was thinking about this metaphor today. In part because at the end of the article, the author says, wouldn't it be something along the lines of, wouldn't it be great if all of our leaders lived this way? All of our leaders believed this way. All of our leaders acted this way. And I thought, we missed the point. When we think I want other people to live like Jimmy Carter, we miss the point. I want to live this way. How amazing would our world be if I lived this way? How amazing would our world be if we lived this way? How amazing would our world be if more people in our world chose to live like he lived his life? That's where the world gets changed, not because some president or some prime minister or some senator or some parliamentarian chooses, you know what, that's it, I'm going to follow Jimmy. Yes, that can make a difference, but his life is there for us to be rewarded by. Anyhow, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the saints, and I was thinking about rock climbing, especially bouldering. So sometimes I'll take my kids, we'll go rock climbing. I owe them a couple of trips to the rock climbing wall, is probably a better way I should say it, but sometimes we'll go rock climbing. And Charlie and Nyla both like doing this thing called bouldering. And I think that's the right term for it. So it's a much smaller wall. It's not as high, and there's lots of padding underneath it. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to go from one handhold to the other, and you're supposed to traverse and make your way across this wall, not necessarily just up. And I thought, that's what the saints are, right? That's what folks like Jimmy Carter are. They're handholds for us on this big bouldering wall of life. We can be happy where we are, hanging there, but we see that possibility that we can move in those directions. And we can do that by grabbing on to what it is that they've taught us. They taught us about humility. They taught us about strength. They teach us about faith. What they teach us about charity. What they teach us about giving ourselves. Planting seeds for trees whose shadow we will never enjoy, whose shade we will never enjoy, Right? That's what these people do. They give us something to reach for. I don't have to be ashamed of where I am, and I'm not. But I want to be where he is. I want to reach and strive because he made this world a better place. And if I can reach and strive to follow him, he'll bring me closer to Christ. If I can reach and strive for those saints and for the lives that those saints have lived, they'll bring me closer to Christ. That's the ultimate goal. And if they bring me closer to Christ, and if I live this life in a way that is more closely following the life that Jesus would ask me to live, by emulating these amazing people and the amazing works that they have done, by truly living it, not just learning it. Right? Because the true gift that these people give us is the opportunity to live their way. Not just to know about it, not just to learn about it, not just to write papers and books about it, but to live their way. So today, my prayer for all of us as we mourn the passing of another great man, another great person, my prayer is that as we learn about his life, we would be inspired to live like him. Amen.